thinking, really thinking way ahead. Every once in a while, folks, we have to change the tape
That was that funny
in
little
order to keep,
pauses.
remembering what was said here.
Yeah.
But there's just little things like sound effects, like Sonny did there, where you go, shh,
Yeah.
Now I've heard him do that on a lot of things, but and that's an effect,
Yeah.
and it's using space. I mean, it's using because you got to start it at the right time, let it ring exactly a certain amount of time, and stop it.
Yeah.
And it has to have a dynamic to it, which it does, because there's like a sweep, It isn't just hitting a cymbal and stopping it.
He was like an orchestrator
Oh,
of
yeah.
percussion.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the way you hit the cymbal has, and the way you grab it creates what that little beat and a half or whatever it is he's got to do.
Yeah.
How do you know? Now, how do you know what it's going to sound like before you start? I bet you he didn't even know. But he heard something in his head and he did it, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And that's how you make sounds. And that's knowing thy drum, knowing thy instrument. He knew it. He knew he could, and he knew exactly how much space he had. And he took a chance and played something that fit perfectly.
Yeah.
And
But-
musically,
We're talking with Mel Lewis about Sonny Greer, and right now we're going to hear one more Sonny, or we have a few more Sonny Greer, including some real surprises. I can't wait to play them for Mel because he probably hasn't heard these ones before. But the next one is a very famous one. It was a feature of him called Jumpin' Pumpkins, and I think it makes a nice analogy, or it fits in nicely after the one we just heard. The one we just heard was Wellman Breaux on the bass, Barney Bogart on the clarinet, the great Arthur Wetzel on the trumpet, along with Ellington, Sonny Greer, and Wellman Breaux, and Freddie Guy from 1928. Now, this next one is from 1941, and I mean, this great metamorphosis has happened. It's 13 years later. Jimmy Blanton and Strayhorn and Ben Webster and all these great people, Rex and Cootie and the great trombone section, and everybody had come in the band, and it was a much different concept. But Sonny's conception isn't that far away from what he did with Wellman Breaux, and I think it'll be fun to compare the way that you have Ellington, Wellman Breaux, and Sonny Greer, and then Ellington, Blanton, and Sonny Greer.
Yeah.
And it's a great comparison. And Sonny actually does that same little thing when they went, that little
Yeah,
thing he did
yeah.
on the cymbal there. He does here, too, in a totally different context, but it fits. It fits perfectly. Sonny Greer with Ellington, 1941.
See, on this whole, he had a few different fills on this thing, and first of all, he played brushes on almost the whole track,
Right.
and he turned around and used the handles on when he's playing the cymbals. I could tell because it sounded like mallet, but it was actually the rubber handles.
Right.
And now Sonny had cymbals there that if you listen throughout his whole career, he had the cymbals he started out with in the 20s. He had the same cymbals all through that whole period, into the 30s and the 40s, right up until, as far as I'll bet you, I'll bet you, because he used to keep them shiny anyway. You know, he used to clean them all the time.
Right.
And he always had the same sound on every record I've ever heard. And I believe that Sonny kept the same cymbals throughout his whole Ellington career. I don't think he changed cymbals at all, because there was some cymbals there that have a sound that he could have never duplicated. Nobody could have.
Funny,
And I've heard him on everything.
funny you mentioned that because there's some recordings done in late '44 when Sonny was on a little bit of a break from the band. Excuse me. And drummer from Chicago, Hilliard Brown, came in and subbed. And everyone who's ever written about those performances says, oh, it's amazing how much he sounds like Sonny Greer. And I finally figured out, you know what, he's using Sonny's drum set.
That's it.
You know, the bands were like acts in those days. I mean, all the instruments and the cases and the drums.
Yeah,
So
they
when-
went on the trip
right.
and
So the man
they tell you
sat
don't
down
bring
with-
your drums. We
Yeah.
got Sonny's drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it had a lot to do with why he probably sounded like Sonny.
Well, we didn't. How about that
Sid Catlett?
Sid Catlett thing?
Right.
I'd swear he's playing on Sonny's drums on that. Same thing. You could hear Sid's touch. Definitely, it's a definite different feel.
Yeah.
But you swear, you know, it's not Sid's drums.
I think it's so important to make that point that we're making about Sonny Greer with Ellington's band. It's not, you can't analyze Sonny Greer like you analyze drummer A and B.
No,
and,
no.
you know, he was a percussionist, a
Yeah.
composer, a
But he was such an integral
music
part.
maker.
Yeah, he was so important to the band. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
when you know, when Louis came in, when Louis Bellson joined the band later on, it was such a drastic change that to me it was as if Ellington might have as well have broke up the band completely and totally reorganized with a whole new group of guys, because that's how different it was.
Yeah.
And to me, it never recaptured. It never had. It was like a new band. No different than when Thad and I, when Thad left our band.
Sure.
I mean, eventually, it didn't take, after a while, the band took on, this band has a whole new character.
Yeah.
It's mine. It's my character. It's what I represent, I mean, you can't, and Thad, even though we're playing the same music, it sounds and feels different. And this is what happened there. It was a totally new Ellington band. Never to be recaptured without, that's probably what, and you notice that everybody, the main interest in Ellington today is of the period of Sonny Greer.
Yeah. He was actually, you
You
could
know.
make a case that he was the first avant-garde jazz drummer.
I would
sense.
make that case. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be no problem to do that. But I also believe that he was part of the sound, and Duke knew that. He depended on him, and that the music, that he was definitely one of the very first people that the music was written for, with the knowledge of, I'll write this, and he'll play
Right.
that, which goes back to what you said before about the ping and the pong.
Ping and the pong. And also, one other point is one other charge that is leveled at Sonny Greer that is unfair, is that he didn't swing.
Oh,
Well,
no,
you
yeah,
just play
that's-
someone Cottontail,
Yeah.
the record of Cottontail. And
Well,
tell
you're
me-
going, yeah, but see, go ahead.
No, I was done.
Say what you were going to say.
I was done. I was
Oh.
done at that point. I was just belching.
Well, that shows you the stupidity of a lot of critics and people who are judging, you're judging a man's career on a record.
Right.
Maybe it didn't swing that day.
Right.
Maybe it didn't swing as good as normal, I mean, are we all such swingers that the minute we wake up, we start swinging, and we swing all day long because we're supposed to be, My God, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No. Without
I
any
mean, it's a
hills, there are no
situation.
valleys.
Oh, sure. There's got to be a situation. First of all, in those days, to swing on any record in any studio was an accomplishment. because of the distance and the obstacles thrown in front of you by the engineers. They made it more difficult for any band to swing.
Yeah.
You know, so you had to swing. Everything swinging on a record day was like swinging in spite
Yeah. Right.
of, you know.
Reality.
Yeah, the reason Rudy Van Gelder studio recordings swung so hard is because everybody was in a little living room right on top of each other as if they were on a bandstand in a small club.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you miss? You know,
Yeah.
you couldn't go wrong. But to be in a large studio where they got you separated from this one and that one separated, and with a big band, they got everybody spread out. That's what they used to do.
Yeah.
You know, today we scream, you know, we say, hey, we want the band together, we want to set up
Right.
as if we were in the bandstand, you know.
And they look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah, but we look at them like you're going to do it or else, you know. But I mean, that's not fair to Sonny or to Gene or to any. They went through these routines in those days, being accused of things. The point was, nightly they were on a bandstand playing and knocking everybody out.
That's right.
Most of the time. But every tempo, you know, if the leader sets the wrong tempo on something,
Right.
well, the chances are it might not swing. It just might not make it,
Yeah.
you know. So all you do is try. You do the best you can.
Yeah.
Certain things happen. For something to really happen, certain elements have to be there, you know.
And especially we hear about Rudy Van Gelder and pretty much small group recording. And when you're talking about a big band, of course, you're talking about multiplying those personal dynamics by 16.
Yeah.
And getting everyone to swing and feel good. And,
Right.
you
So
know.
when something is swinging, I mean, it's through. It's not easy. It's through hard work. And if something isn't swinging, you can't blame an individual. You can't say it was Sonny's fault.
Right.
You know. And if he didn't happen to swing on one track of one tune, I mean, out of all the hundreds of records he made,
Right.
I mean, for crying out loud, that's
Well,
ridiculous.
we're about to spring a couple of great things on you. One of the great recordings of Sonny Greer live is the Fargo recordings from 1940, done by our good friend Jack Towers, who has rescued many of our
Yeah.
records. And that's very well known and been issued many times, but lesser known are the great series of Treasury broadcasts that Ellington did in 1945 and 1946 that have been preserved and issued by another good friend, Jerry Valburn, and he's done them in phenomenal sound quality. It's from this series that we get the incredibly rare occurrence of a broadcast of Sid Catlett playing in the Ellington Band. But another broadcast, July 6th, 1946, captures Sonny Greer well recorded in a really kind of boisterous mood. So we're going to listen to these two things with him really just in about as great as he ever played. We'll hear him do another thing that he was one of the first drummers to champion, was that kind of caravan, kind of like
with the tom-toms. And
Latin beat drumming that really was not in your average jazz drummer's vocabulary quite back that early, I don't think. He was probably one of the first ones to make it popular. And then we'll hear something written for a metronome date called Metronome All Out. That was one of those big 12-inch 78s, but we won't hear the Esquire All-Stars play it, the Esquire All-Star Big Man. We'll hear the Ellington Band play it.
Oh, okay.
And Sonny really just throws in all the pots and the pans on this one. It's 7:48. You're tuned in to WKCR-FM in New York, 89.9 on your FM dial. Lauren Schoenberg with you, and again, my pleasure to be hosting the show, or to be just steering it while Mel Lewis is, or I don't know.
well, between us, we're
But
doing
yeah,
pretty
we're
good.
doing anyway. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are too out there about jazz drums. Sonny Greer with Ellington live on the air, 1946.
And now, boys and girls, let's hop aboard the caravan as Duke Ellington and his orchestra take off on number one.
What can you say after that? That's hot.
Yeah, it's
Now that was I'll have to admit that's one of the strongest performances I've ever heard come from Sonny on
yeah,
and where he just said, "The hell with it, man! I'm going to play, and
Yeah.
this is fun."
yeah.
And
Oscar
he-
Pettiford was the bassist, of course. We should
well,
mention there.
Well, with Oscar,
Yeah,
that's Mr. Strongman too, and well, I heard them together many times.
oh, you did.
Oh yeah, sure. And sure, Oscar was there. I remember going to see him. They played in Buffalo a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
And but the main thing there is that there was some modern drumming. I mean, if you want to call it modern, there was
Right.
some modern stuff. I mean, he just got up on top of everything and just said and played not fills but just played. You
right,
know,
right.
you can't call it fills. I wouldn't call it fills. It just played. That's all. It went straight ahead.
Yeah,
Almost like what Chick Webb was doing. Only more so.
Yeah.
Because it was more opening, and of course the arrangement, the music itself was about as avant-garde as you can get. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't. It just goes to show you like how little we've invented today.
that was called Metronome All Out by Billy Strayhorn, and before that we heard the famous Caravan, and of course, tunes that were, as Mel mentioned before when we was talking about Jumpin' Pumpkins and the Ellington Band, tunes that were written and arranged specifically with Sonny in mind. I mean, these
Oh,
guys
Sonny
knew that
gets
he
a
was going to
sound.
playing drums.
He's getting a sound on Caravan now. He got a sound on with the mallets. He played basically what you'd call like a timpani part. He had, whoops.
It's okay.
He had.
Sorry.
Well, I want to wait till you get.
No. The tape with the music.
Oh, all right. The important thing there is that he got such a beautiful timbre out of his high and low tom.
Yep.
Because his small tom was very small. It was like what we call a 7x11.
Mm-hmm.
It was a small drum, and then he had this big 16 or 18-inch floor tom that he was. So I mean, it's quite an extreme. Then he had his snares off on his snare drum.
Yeah.
And although if you look at Sonny's set, if you saw pictures of it, he had another tom. He had 3 tom-toms. He had 2 on the drum and 1 on the floor. But
Right.
but every time I saw him, I noticed that he favored that very small one over on the right and the one over here on the floor. He
Mhm.
used them more than anything. He didn't bother with the one over the snare drum as much. I think it was almost there for looks more than anything.
Yeah.
It was a middle. It would have been a middle color, and I don't hear it very often.
Right.
I always hear the high and the low,
Yeah.
and then of course the bass
gong.
drum,
Right.
and then the gong.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons because he had his left hand freed up to play some of the cymbal things. Because I remember he used to play a lot of things with his left hand. He'd play on the cymbals with his left.
Really?
Oh yeah,
You
well
mean
that
hit?
was. Yeah, well like.
Yeah.
Go back there while he's doing something here.
Right.
And he was definitely a two-handed drummer.
A lot of nice things. In fact, one of the most memorable moments I've heard, one of the memorable moments that I remember with you playing was one time doing Sing, Sing, Sing we did up in Tarrytown. And you got into a thing with the sounds of the sticks. I mean, the whole thing of the solo was the theme of it seemed to be, at this particular point, the sounds of the sticks on the drums and hitting the sticks and hitting the drums.
yeah.
And similar to what he was doing there. I mean,
Yeah.
making making that a musical point out of what you can do with stick sounds on the drums.
You
You
use
know.
whatever you got, everything you got in your hands.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's there. You should use it. I mean, why not? And I think Sonny Greer used. I think he was probably one of the greatest jazz percussionists of all time. And of course, he certainly was in the right band. I mean, that's another important thing, of course. I mean, you got to realize that for Sonny to do what he did, he had to be a member of an organization that allowed him to. and the Ellington Band certainly did. Now, but if you heard the Ellington Band with another kind of person sitting in that chair, maybe the Ellington Band wouldn't have been anywhere near what it was. So it all goes together, you know.
Sure. That's one of the amazing things about the Ellington Band was the, just the confluence, I guess, of all those people in the same band.
Yeah.
Just an amazing thing.
Right.
I mean,
But everybody forgets how how important the drum is. The drummer is so important to how good or bad
Sure.
a band is going to be.
Oh, tell me about it.
So I mean, you really have to realize that the Ellington Band needed Sonny Greer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It needed him. I don't know anybody else around at that time that could have done for the orchestra what he did.
Maybe Sid Catlett. I mean, it's
Well,
hypothetical.
You don't
I mean,
know because you don't know what Sid would have done from the front.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's hard
Could
to
have
say.
been,
Right.
could have been, but I don't know. Sid was a. Well, we're going to get to him anyway, but
Right.
but I think Sid was more of a swinging drummer than Sonny was. I
Right.
mean, we're not talking about when I'm saying swinging. I mean, more straight ahead,
Right.
and I think he liked to do more. He liked to. I don't think he was into percussion as much as into making sounds. I think he liked to float more.
Yeah, that's one of the many silly things in the book Duke Ellington by James Lincoln Collier. And one of the silly points he makes is that he says Sonny's drums, that whole drum set and the gongs and the tom-toms and everything was just there for show. He didn't know how to play them. If you listen to what an idiotic statement.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
You know.
figures.
but then you listen to a record like Caravan or any record like the Jumpin' Pumpkins or any of those records where he's just he's another voice in the band. He's not the drummer.
Well,
He-
first
he's
of all,
a-
how stupid can you be in the first place? It's Ellington's band. I mean, why would he have somebody there that didn't belong there?
right.
Especially if Ellington if Ellington was such a genius,
Right.
then and Sonny Greer was such a terrible drummer, then why was he there? You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Come on.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, who are these people who write things? I mean, what do they play? What do they know about it?
Did you get to keep in touch with Sonny in his later years here in New York when he was playing
yeah,
around
I got
with
to
Brooks
see him.
Kerr
Yeah,
and other people?
yeah, occasionally. But
What a great storyteller
he used to come. He used to come down. I used to run into him in my building because he used to come down there for his treatments when he was ill. So I used to see him. We always had something nice to say out in the hallway. He called me Youngblood,
Yeah.
See, I met when I first met him. Al Killian was going to introduce me to him actually, and Sonny was so loaded, man, that I was brought down to the train, to the
Right.
train car, and Sonny was brought in by a couple of big guys carrying him with a suitcase on his belly. They just dumped him in a seat, and there he was, and that was the first chance I had to meet him. So I didn't meet him, but I had heard him all week.
Yeah.
And I could never get near him, and I was finally going to get a chance to meet him then, and that was in the 40s, and I had to wait till the next time, which was actually back in Buffalo again.
When he came up through with Duke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this was all with Duke.
Yeah. We're talking with Mel Lewis 5 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we're doing the history of jazz drums in case you just tuned in. Every Wednesday night on WKCR-FM in New York, there's a show called The Musician Show, and it's one of many regularly scheduled jazz shows. Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m., the show is called Jazz Alternatives. And every Wednesday night, again, it's called The Musician Show, where we invite a musician up and have him be the guest host. And Mel has been a guest host here on KCR with me dozens of times. And we are redoing a series of broadcasts that we originally did several years ago on the history of jazz drums. And last week we did Kaiser Marshall and Baby Dodds and Zooty Singleton and Stan King and Ben Pollack and others, Paul Barbarin. And this week we are just plodding along, taking our time, listening to some great records. And I shouldn't say plodding wrong, that's the wrong word. Taking our time and digging all the things that Mel has to tell us about the music and about the men, about these great drummers. And we've just listened to Sonny Greer, and I hope you got a nice feel for what Sonny Greer was all about from those records. You can hear Sonny Greer on every Ellington record between about 1924 and 1949 or so, in case you're wondering where the Sonny Greer records are. Just go out and buy any Ellington record from those years, and you'll hear the great modern masters of drums. Of course, one of the great modern masters of drums is right here. That's Mel Lewis, and once again, you can catch him every Monday night at the Village Vanguard, going on the 24th year, with the Jazz Orchestra, also with a new record out called Soft Lights and Hot Music on the Music Masters label, released before that 20 years at the Vanguard on the Atlantic record label, and certainly the Mel Lewis record bins are always well populated at the record stores. You can find any number of recordings, in addition to the great recordings that Mel has made with so many other folks over the past, just about 40 years. Your recording career is about 40 years old now. You started...
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year. It's 40 years old.
Amazing. Well, we're going to turn from Sonny Greer now to another gentleman who was pivotal in Mel's career and also in the history of jazz drumming. He's going to introduce a new element of drumming that I don't think we've heard quite yet from any of the other gentlemen. And this is Jonathan Joe Jones. And this is another approach, another idea.
This is a completely different approach. It's soft, for one thing. It's intense, but it's relaxed, and it's part of a rhythm team. I think that's where the big change comes in.
Yeah.
And it takes us away from the 3-man or 4-man rhythm section. This all of a sudden becomes where everybody's sound has to blend with each other. Now, I don't know if they knew that in the beginning, but I think they found it out. They discovered that if we play at a certain level and if we get this thing going, this is what we're going to have.
Yeah.
Because, you hear like other records by other rhythm sections from that era coming out of Kansas City and some of those, Jay McShann stuff and all that.
Sure.
It's not the same.
No.
Although they're for rhythm.
And even the best of the other rhythm sections, for instance, Goodman's rhythm section with Krupa and Alan Roos and Jess Stacy and Harry Goodman, or the Ellington rhythm section, or the John Kirby rhythm section. You can't say they weren't swinging, because they were swinging.
No, but they didn't get this particular blend.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were 4 special people, and I think Joe had so much because the drummer.
Yeah.
The drummer is still, your lead trumpet player and your drummer is still. Without them, you don't have a band.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, let's introduce ourselves to Joe Jones Sound. We'll hear a record that's groundbreaking. The Chick Webb record with Liza and some of the Krupa records with Goodman were very influential for drummers and groundbreaking, because drummers really hadn't gotten in the middle of arrangements before making figures and playing such obvious fills before the 30s, with very few exceptions. And if you remember Chick Webb's fills on Liza, compare them here to Joe's fills. This record turned a lot of heads. This is Sent For You Yesterday. And at the end, when the band goes ba 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 ba, and he goes, he does his fills, you'll hear the way that they're integrated into the music, and I think this will make a great comparison with the other things. Joe Jones, Spotlight, Sent For You Yesterday. Here You Come Today, the original recording, 1938, right off of a blue label, Decca 78.
the moon look lonesome shining through the trees? Don't your house look lonesome when your baby pack up to leave? Sent for you yesterday, and here you come today. Sent for you yesterday, and here you come today. You can't love me, baby, and treat me that way.
A little scratchy, but still nice.
Oh yeah, I remember playing. I remember when I was a kid, playing the stock arrangement on that exactly. With the wah 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 da 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 chorus and all that.
Yeah.
For dancing, we played. We used to play dances every Friday night, and then during the summer every night, and that was one of our favorites. And I think I recall I used to play those same kind of fills. Yeah, but the triplets,
Yeah.
and that's the little difference you're hearing with Joe, is he's playing triplets. You got to play him with a triplet feel, whereas a lot of the earlier drummers we listened to played more single stroke. They played biddle-diddle-diddle,
Right.
where he's playing bada, just nice open triplets, simple.
Right.
Which falls right into his style. Also, the hi-hat starts in the beginning and goes right through.
Yeah.
It never changes, except he adds a backbeat here and there.
Right. Which goes to show that you can swing a band with a hi-hat, which is another lost art these
That's
days.
right. That's it.
I've played with again, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but gosh, I've played with drummers who haven't touched the hi-hat. I know. There are people who haven't. I'm not saying they don't play it a lot. I've heard drummers who never play the hi-hat, and it would seem like someone walking around with one arm tucked in their pocket and never using it. It's like being a cripple.
They don't know how to play it.
Yeah.
They really don't know.
And-
They're not taught how to play it.
Yeah,
And,
and they don't hear it.
They don't hear it. They don't. They either think it's old-fashioned, but basically they just don't know how to play it.
Yeah. It's such a
They don't know how to coordinate that. There's a way of
Yeah.
doing it, and it's not open, closed, closed, open.
Right.
know.
You mean
It's not ta-ta-da. It's an open, closed, half open, and so on.
Yeah.
There's a feel. It's a
Yeah.
touch you get with the coordinating your feet. And you
Yeah.
hardly press. The thing actually isn't closed that much, and so
Right.
on. It's an art. It's something
Yeah.
that Joe was the master of from those days, and he created a sound that was just so beautiful. The cymbals too,
Oh, yeah.
and the touch he had on
Yeah.
them.
We're going to hear more of that on the next record.
Oh,
that
sure.
one's a little bit of a scratchy 78. This next one that we're going to hear really has sublime cymbal work, very well captured, and so I want to get to that right away. Another thing that I think he introduced to it, it's a variant of what you were talking about with the triplet feel with the fills, as opposed to da 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 and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, with the more relaxed quarter note and eighth note triplets, is the implication of the 3 against 4 thing with the hi hat,
Yeah.
ding 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 ding, and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah, cha da 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 da
Yeah.
da da.
well, that's pretty deep
Yeah.
in concept. Because That hadn't been done before, and you
No.
hear him on those Basie records
No,
implying
and everybody
3/4
yeah.
measures.
Yeah, he does that. I mean, he that was that was his creation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
That's a marvelous thing. You can break it up any number of ways. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to Joe Jones. Even captured better sound-wise. This is a famous small group recording of the Royal Garden Blues. Buck Clayton on trumpet, Don Byas on the tenor, and the All-American Rhythm section. Walter Page, Freddie Green, Joe Jones, Basie at the piano. This is the Royal Garden Blues. And then when we'll come back, we'll ask Mel about when he first heard Joe Jones play the ride cymbal very early on in the game, because this is the same kind of thing, probably the same cymbal Mel heard just a few years earlier. It's 17 minutes after 8. Mel Lewis is here, and it's the history of jazz drumming, and we're going to another track now from Joe Jones. Stay tuned.